Dear boomers, I have been thinking about all the different ways that time does not exist, or it exists in different ways than in ways that we can't really explain. Jean Houston goes into this in her class, the quantum potential, the quantum blueprint. And I'm sure we can all look over our lives to see how time, things that ordinarily might take weeks or months to accomplish, actually is happens in a very small time frame because of our consciousness surrounding it, or because of the situation that surrounds it. For instance, back in high school, I was the understudy for Lady Bracknell, the in the Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. And I didn't study the lines. I didn't expect that I would have to. But my friend who played Lady Bracknell suddenly, and I was her understudy, she suddenly became very ill and eventually died. And at the time that she became ill, we didn't know she was going to die, and it was up to me to do the role on stage. And I'll never forget that. I learned those lines in record time, and I had, been hanging out with the production, watching the rehearsals. I mean, I wasn't actively trying to memorize these lines. Suddenly, I had to go up there on stage. I used the script as a prop, which made it very funny, and I managed to accomplish something that was a little unexplainable in terms of time and how it works, or maybe we don't understand how it works. But that was a good example of something that Jean Houston does talk about, because a friend of hers had to play, I think she was an understudy for a role in Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, and she suddenly had to go up on stage, and it would have been near impossible to go up and memorize those lines in a normal time. Normally, it would take weeks and sometimes a month or two, just like Lady Bracknell, to actually learn the role. The necessity of it, that she had to do it. I think she probably learned those lines in a very abbreviated time span. And she still, to this day, or maybe, I don't know if she's alive or not, but she had told Jean Houston how she couldn't understand it. She felt like she was dancing with time. She felt like she had a lot of time, yet no time at all. That's very profound. And I think that's how the time warp happens for us. So there are so many kinds of time, personal time, in which it's on my time, and I use it as I can. And then there is physical time, biological time, sync time, and that's when you get in sync with somebody, and that's really an interesting experience where you are in sync with somebody, all is right with the world, and everything is harmonious. And to me, that's what we should strive for in our relationships. And it feels like you're mirroring that person. There's micro time, profane time, sacred time, and metaphysical time, and all kinds of times. There's monochromic time, and there's polychromic time. The Western society that we live in now is monochromic time. Other cultures don't even the indigenous people of the world don't even think of time. They are not in time. That's polychromic time. And when Western society pressures people to live in monochromic time, you can see how this causes quite a lot of dysfunction in that person if they believe they have to conform. And sometimes you do. You come into this society and you have to get a job, you have to be there on time. So when we are born, the clock of time is already within the rhythm of our psyche. This the we are in tune with the Earth's atmosphere, which, as Jean says, the Earth is breathing in its sleep. This causes rhythmical changes that govern our life. We are governed by time zones, and then she describes when I think she was very active at one time, talking, giving lectures all over the world. She would witness the rising of the sun in different time zones, the setting of the sun, the rising of the moon in different time zones, and that kind of does something to your perception. I mean, I think you can easily get into the quantum space of no time in such a situation. And she said sometimes she would see springtime in 5 different time zones in a year. She said sometimes she sees winter in full season, sometimes 4 times a year. She can be in a conference halfway around the world and have to be alert if she's the keynote speaker, and it's 2 a.m. in the morning for her. I mean, she's obviously usually asleep at 2 a.m. Most people are. Then she comes back the next day and she's in another conference in another time zone and in another world. So she talked about at 3 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon, we sometimes become tired. I know I do. And she talked about how that's the time of day where you say, be alert, be alert. You tell yourself to be alert. And that if you are driving, if your responsibility is to drive a bus, or if you're driving anybody, that can really prevent accidents. So she talked about time in traditional India and time in traditional Egypt, which is what Polychromic time, where people, I sold my farm to my friends who are Mideastern people. They're very much into food. They actually run 2 or 3 restaurants in Lancaster, PA. They're called Flavors of Morocco. So when you go to eat with them, it's not like you eat and run. And that is so disgusting when you think about it. We sit, we have courses of food, we sing together. Sometimes there's a belly dancer and we all dance with her. And lots of conversation and camaraderie, sisterhood. And even the men seem to go on that polychromic time space. So maybe by the time it's 9, 10, or 11 o'clock at night, we have completed the meal, and then it's time to have festivities after that. This is really wonderful. I know that I was loving that very much, especially after my husband died. I went to the farm and hung out with these people because during COVID, I couldn't expect anybody to come visit me, so I hung out at my old farmhouse. Actually, it was still my farmhouse, but I was trying to sell it. So it is fascinating, really. Redesigning a polychromic society into monochromic society is a sad situation. Well, she gives us several different exercises in order to go into the future and bring time to us. And this very much reminds me of Joe Dispenza's idea of being grateful for a life you are yet to live, or going back in time to a situation that has plagued you forever. And you can, and it doesn't have to be a traumatically, you know, horrible situation, but it could be something like a teacher saying to you in the past, this actually happened, you might as well just forget doing anything because you're worthless. In fact, that happened to Matthew Perry, where I think his teacher said he really wouldn't amount to anything. And when he was on the cover of People magazine, he was himself on the cover. He sent that to the teacher to just let them know that that's really a bad thing to say to children. So if you go back in time and say to your teacher, show them something that happened for you that shows that you are not a worthless human being, it can actually help you feel a little bit more goodwill towards these situations and it just makes you feel that you're doing something about it instead of being a victim about it. And then the same would be true of the future. And of course, we do everything from the present moment. The Theory of Relativity by Albert Einstein in 1904. Do you really think the clock is going a certain way? No, it goes slower than at the speed of light. Einstein said that a fast-moving astronaut could leave the Earth and return a century later, only to find that whereas he had aged only a few years, everyone else he knew had died. And the movie Interstellar is about that. So there is no absolute time. Actually, time does not exist at all. Quantum physics shows us that there are multiple times as there are multiple observers. An observer influences everything he or she is observing. And then there's the statement by Einstein and other quantum physicists that in the world of the quantum, time past, time present, and time future are simultaneous. So that is where it's at. You can work. She gives us exercises, but this is something for us to ponder. To think that, actually, I wanted to also say that I'm going to be interviewing New World Library authors, and the first one is exactly about this. Being able to take control of this feeling of overwhelm when you feel like you have too much to do and you can't do any of it. I would like you to look up here because a video will be showing up. And love, love, love. Let's see. Love, love, love. Love, love, love. And peace on earth.